Um, when we look at climate action goals, most of our goals are around 2050, 2070, 2100, 2200. For someone like me who's probably 31 years right now, and a lot of us in this whole age group, we're wondering, yes, we're thinking about the future, but what about today? About 20 years ago, when we spoke of climate action, when we spoke about adaptation, when we spoke about resilience mitigation, we had a famous saying that this is what we are giving to the next generation. We believed very genuinely that this is what we are, what we owe to the future, what we owe for the children, what we owe to the people who are not yet here on our planet and about to come in the next few, generations to come. But now I think it's about time that we start thinking about ourselves. We start thinking about our own generation. We start thinking very, very selfishly about how we are going to spend our next 10, 20, 15, 30, 40 years on this planet. It's increasingly becoming difficult for all of us to go on with life as usual. If you just take out extracts from newspapers of the last 5 years, or probably the last 10 years, and being in politics for about 10 years now, since the year 2011, 2012, I've started off my journey with going into drought-hit areas of Maharashtra, giving water there in terms of the wells, trying to look at evaporation rates, trying to see whether we could cover wells, we could look at, basalt rock having smaller dams being created, barrage dams being created. We could look at different solutions. And I know a lot of us out here with Mumbai First and many more partner agencies always do this when we are facing crises like droughts or floods or other things that we really face in terms of nature. But exceedingly, as we come towards 2015, 2016, what I started noticing is the same areas that we went for drought relief work started facing flash floods. And there is a huge shift there. Today, as we stand in 2022, from the year 2019, 2018 onwards, the extremities are such that these are no longer anomalies in climate change, or these are not erratic weather events. There's a pattern to it. Every newspaper report in summer reports saying this is probably the hottest April in the last 100 years, probably the hottest May in the last 120 years. You go towards June and July and they'll say it is the wettest monsoon in the last 50 years. You go towards winters and it's probably the first time this February that we had to wear sweaters in Mumbai. So we're seeing extremes in our seasons. We're seeing extremes in every type of weather pattern that we are seeing. And if we don't accept this as climate crisis, if we don't accept this as a climate emergency, we're definitely keeping our eyes closed and moving in the future without learning anything from today or the past. I often say this, and I've been seeing this, feeling this in the last few days, not just as a minister, but as someone who's a 31-year-old citizen in this country, as someone who's a part of a political party, as someone who's a part of government, that our country really is living in two extremes. On one extreme, we're trying to find water on the moon and on Mars. And this is not just our country, this is across the world. And on the other extreme, we are trying to find Mars and other planets in our own horoscopes. We're not finding a midway ahead. We're not finding to see whether we have enough water for our own housing societies in a city like Mumbai. We're not trying to find what is the solution for a drought or a water shortage in a hamlet which is not even 2.5 hours away from Mumbai. We're not trying to find a solution for burning garbage dumps near Delhi. And if we don't do that, I don't know what else are we looking for. Because without a sustainable future, without a sustainable roadmap, without thinking about today, I do not know what we are fighting for. In the last few days, I've been seeing newspapers where all political parties, all of us, we're fighting over the past. We're constantly fighting over what happened in history was right or wrong. We're constantly fighting over, who did what and whether they were right or wrong. We're not fighting for our today. We're not fighting for our tomorrow. I think it is time that we start thinking about our today and our tomorrow. The single biggest event in our world history that is affecting us today, apart from COVID, of course, and COVID has been a terrible scar on humanity, a terrible memory for the last 2 years, apart from the fact that we all came together and started supporting each other beyond boundaries, I think that is a good memory we can hold and a great learning we can have when we go towards the future. But today, the biggest problem or the biggest challenge we have is climate change. And the biggest hope we have is climate action. I think drawing hope from the spirit of humanity, drawing hope from the ambitions that we have. If you look at some of our service industry, if you look at some of our manufacturing industry, if you look at some of our numbers of the economy, if you look at some of our hotel industry that's doing really well, people are wanting to step out after COVID, people are wanting to support each other, people are wanting to go forward, break the barriers of COVID, break the chains of lockdowns and move forward. I think that is really what gives me hope. And if we stand by hope, I believe that climate action is not meant for 2040. I believe that climate action is not meant for 2070 or 2100, it's meant for today. And if we don't start today, we're not going ahead anywhere in the future. With that thought, we started off on a journey for climate action plans. Speaking about Maharashtra, we have about 120 million people living in our state. When we were at COP26, which is almost 7 months ago, and seems like a decade ago now, when we won the Regional Inspirational Award, I think that was back then. And now we're looking at the next COP, because it's not enough to be doing something for the past, now we're looking for the future. And I've been chasing our department, and thankfully we have a very, very competitive principal secretary, which even, Atulji was telling me that, she's been having a great stint as an environment secretary. We've also got Sanjeev Kumar ji here, we've got Srinivas ji here. All of us are working as one team. We're working to build something which is better for our own selves, very selfishly, because if we don't start from today, we don't look at the low-hanging fruits, we're never going to go to the top of the tree. Looking at what we want to build for our state of Maharashtra, it's a very complex state, it's a very beautiful state. We've got a huge coastline, long coastline, but apart from that, coastal cities, cities on hilltops, cities in arid areas, cities in areas where you have great potential for solar energy, great potential for wind energy, great potential for rainfall catchment areas. But when we build and weave all of this together, we have certain figures that are quite astounding, that are quite challenging, and that also is a sort of hope for all of us. Like I said, we've got 120 million people in our state, out of which almost 60%, 50%, more than 60 million people live in 43 cities that are million plus. Cities like Mumbai, Pune, Thane, Navi Mumbai, Nagpur, Sambhajinagar, Nasik, Kolhapur, these are cities that are constantly growing, not just on the cusp of development, but on the cusp of something which is higher, better. And I think the plan that is, in terms of the development plans that we have for 2034, 2050, have to have some climate agendas weaved into it. We are the economic backbone of the country. We have Mumbai, the financial capital of the country, out here. We also have highly, highly urbanized areas. We have smaller towns wanting to be a part of these highly urbanized areas, but we also have a huge sector that is dependent on agriculture every single day. Now, when we look at a state like this, we've decided to have climate action plans for all 43 cities. Our race to zero has to be faster than everyone else. Our vulnerability, really, not just talking about a coastal city like Mumbai or Ratnagiri or Sindhudurg, the vulnerability for every city and every district, every taluka in Maharashtra is really high. Because when we speak about continents, when we speak about North America or South America, when we speak of Europe, when we look at Australia, when we speak about the entire Oceania, I think the vulnerability for India is probably the highest. And I say this purely by a couple of things put together. A geographical location. We face monsoons almost all across, every part of India at least faces monsoons once in 12 months. We face a heat wave once in 12 months. We have winters once in 12 months. So each part of India really has its own seasons that move from one part to the other. And then we have the retreating monsoon. So we face the dangers of a flash flood, landslide, heat wave, cold wave, all throughout the year. And if we have to look at ourselves as one unit as a country, our disaster management rooms in the last 5 to 7 years have been working 24/7 for at least one part of our country, if not another. Now, when we speak about our own country, Maharashtra, and a couple of more states which we have been interacting with very, very actively, be it Tamil Nadu, be it many more states across India, we believe, and the proposal we've already sent to the Union Minister for Forest and Environment, we believe that climate action is something for us to do at a national level and a regional level. And we've proposed something called the Council of Climate Change, National Council of Climate Change. We've got a GST council where the finance minister of the country has deliberations with finance ministers across different states of India, and then comes out with different rules and regulations and GST notifications for our country. But today, if you go and see what is really important for our country And there's a famous saying in a country that monsoons are the real finance minister of the country. I think if you go by that saying, we need a National Council of Climate Change. Because today I've come to believe, and when we created and instituted the Maharashtra Council of Climate Change, I've come to believe that climate action is no longer just the work of the Environment Ministry. It's no longer just the work of just the Forest Ministry. It is the work of the Urban Development Ministry. It is the work of the Rural Development Ministry, the energy portfolio, the transport portfolio, the industry portfolio. All of these actually make what climate action is today. And when we look at sectoral action in terms of climate change, we need to weave all of them together in one place, on one table. And that is, I think, where our real climate action will move ahead. I'm extremely proud that as State of Maharashtra, we have been focusing on sustainable development. We have a Chief Minister, Mr. Aaditya Thackeray, who is a wildlife enthusiast, a wildlife photographer, a conservationist. I come from a family of conservationists. But going beyond that, I think in the past 2 years, while we've battled COVID, and we've given a brave fight as citizens of Maharashtra, our state of Maharashtra has added almost 15,500 hectares to mangroves under the Indian Forest Act, newly in the past 2 years. We've got 2 Ramsar sites. We've added 2 sanctuaries. We've got 10 conservation reserves. We're adding 24 new conservation reserves in the next week, hopefully. But while we do all of this, on the urban side, we've gone ahead with the coastal road. We've moved ahead with the Trans-Harbour Link. We're moving ahead with the GMLR. We're looking at the Mumbai-Nagpur highway. We're looking at desalination of Mumbai. And when we do all of this, we're looking at a climate test put to all of these projects. I'll give you a small example. Now, Mumbai is facing the shortfall of 400 million litres of water per day. We were proposing for the last whatever years to build the Gargai-Pinjal Dam. But that Gargai Dam would be in the middle of the Tansa Wildlife Sanctuary. Obviously, it's got a lot of endemic species out there. You've got a good number of highly endangered species out there. We would have had to cut almost 500,000 trees. The solution to that was to scrap that project. And we've done that. But the alternative to create a water source is we are working closely with Israel to build desal, and that will be ready by 2025, to bring an equal amount of water in what would be costing for the dam about 36,000 crores, almost 1,600 crores for this desal plant, but saving on trees, saving on our biodiversity, saving on money, time, efficiency, and moving towards something which is an alternative source for sustainable development. I think these are the solutions that we're trying to build when we look at governance. Today, environmental action is no longer for just the partner agencies, no longer for wildlife enthusiasts, not for NGOs for sure. It's for all of us to work together for a better planet. And when we move at when we look towards building a better planet, I hope that Maharashtra is not going to be alone running the race. We can be first movers. We would want to be first movers, definitely. We would be wanting to lead the pack. But I hope that all the states across India are running shoulder to shoulder, because we have boundaries for administration. We have boundaries for our regions, languages, people, cultures. Biodiversity has no boundaries as such. It merges from one to another. I think that is where climate action really holds true for a national convention on climate action. Going further, Atulji, I think our work together with UNEP is something I really hold close to my heart, because you and I met, I think, 2 or 3 years before I took over as the Minister for Environment. And from then on, we've been in touch, be it beach cleanups and mangrove cleanups to, speaking about electric mobility. Your idea, which was fascinating back then, when you showed me your electric vehicle, we've mandated that for us as a government, for every urban local body and every, ministerial department, we've said that every new vehicle that we rent or buy has to be electric. And that's what we've started off. So that was an inspiration back then when I met you. I can openly say that today. But we've definitely set targets. We're looking at sustainable tourism. We're looking at green hotels that have been given industry status. We're looking at a green future with our real estate industry. We're looking at working closely with our forest department. We're looking at urban development, having a climate action test for almost every proposal that is passed. I look forward for a better future, because conferences like these, with Mumbai First, and I met Mr. Nair a couple of months ago. And again, what he mentioned about Mumbai, and I'm going to come over to that topic in the next 2 minutes after I, conclude my remarks for the environment action, because I'm looking forward to understand more about how we can tap into climate finance. Climate finance is a very, very important topic for all of us. Like everyone has said here in the presentation and in the keynote, it is probably going to be more affordable for us to work on building resilience and adaptation right now than to look at disasters and compensating for those disasters years later. At COP26, when we landed into COP26 and the meetings out there, we were hearing of big numbers, $400 billion and so many $billion and euros and pounds. I think what is important for us is to look at two things, or rather three things. One is what is the cost we're going to pay in terms of carrying on in business as usual. That is one. Two, how can we as regional governments, how can we as urban local bodies, and how can we as national governments create projects for sustainable development, for the Paris Agreement, for COP26, and tap into this global finance or the kitty that is available for green financing. And three, we as a country need to look at the opportunity that we are going to have for creating green growth, green economy and jobs when we look at climate finance and a whole new industry with the environment climate action. I think that is something we're looking at. In terms of moving further, one of the important remarks that Mr. Nair made here when I was discussing this idea, and the Chief Minister himself is also very keen, for the city of Mumbai, where we have multiple agencies, planning agencies, and almost 42 utilities when we dig up a road to remake a road. We're looking at and actively working towards having one single agency to run the city. I think that is very, very crucial. An empowered mayor more than a CEO, because a mayor would be a more democratic elected forum where you have many more voices that represent Mumbai coming together. So that is something we're working on. I see Praja Foundation also here. We've been discussing with them and Mumbai First. This is something which is very crucial for us. Having the experience of worked in the BMC for almost 25 years, we see that multiple agencies, and thankfully now when we work together, and Sanjeev ji and Srinivasa both who have been AMCs in the BMC will tell you that while even making a single footpath, a pedestrian pathway in Mumbai, you need to work with 16 agencies, planning authorities, permission authorities, and 42 utilities. We're looking at a single agency very soon. That good news we can deliver very, very soon to you. But I think this is just the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Our partner agencies, people who are interested in climate action, thank you for coming here today. This is the beginning of a very long road, an uphill climb, but I guess with all of us powering that climb towards a better future, it's going to be a little more easier than what we think. Let's not be disillusioned by saying it's going to be easy, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a habit change for all of us, but we need to make it if we've got to survive on this planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insights and your thoughts. I think sir has driven home a very, very important but a very simple message that now it's no longer up to the environmental agencies or the governments to save the planet, to save the environment. It is now up to each and every one of us to do our bit. Having said that, ladies